Hello and welcome back to the DM's Dungeon. As always, I'm Antonio, and today we're going to talk about why you should have a Session Zero. So for those of you that don't know, Session Zeros are, or the idea is that you have a get-together of your gaming group before you actually are going to start rolling dice and getting in character. The idea is that there's things that sometimes need to get handled before the campaign starts, whether that's helping newer players create characters or just, you haven't met these people before. It's the first time you're all getting together after exchanging emails on Craigslist, what have you. Some people like to jump right into their campaigns, and some people for one reason or another, whether it's organized play or what have you, don't really have the opportunity to do this. Personally, I think if you're going to be running your own campaign, your own game, and it's going to be, a bit of a longer thing, and even if you're not necessarily trying to make like lifelong friends, I think this Session Zero is important to help things go smoothly and to help make sure everyone has the best time they can at the table. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over what I like to take care of in a Session Zero and why I think it helps the campaign and table experience as a whole. So first off, when I bring my players in for a Session Zero for a new campaign I've thought of, I like to introduce the world. Now, often your concept for the campaign is part of the elevator pitch or what gets people hooked to come in. So some of this is already known, but I mean some more details. Is this, so let's say you're in space, right? It's a space sci-fi, let's say Stars Without Numbers campaign. And, is this going to be more along the lines of Star Trek? Is the idea here that you are scientists and so forth trying to learn what you can about various planets and just go on different adventures and see what you can learn about the universe? Or are you, Han Solo and Chewbacca from Star Wars, or a crew like that of smugglers like Firefly? Set up the world like that. Is there an evil empire in charge? Maybe it's just a kind of, to use Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide, are they like Vogons? Is it not necessarily evil? There's just some really annoyingly bureaucratic people in charge. Maybe that's just a headache people have to deal with. Or maybe everyone in Galactic Empire is pretty good and you're defending it. The next thing I like to go over outside of the world setup is the rules that I am going to maybe handle a little differently. And there's a bunch of reasons why this may happen. Almost every table house rules something. And whether it's because the DM, that doesn't fit the DM style of game, like keeping track of your rations or keeping track of how many arrows you shot off. Sometimes it's just because, I don't think this makes sense, or this breaks this spell or this class feature, or this little aspect of something it breaks my campaign, or can be campaign breaking, so I'm going to alter it a little bit. I like to get those out of the way, as well as offer any rule variants to my players that I've considered. A great example is in 5e, I always give my players the option to do spell points opposed to spell slots. It's on them to keep track of that. I'm not going to be looking over a player's shoulder and counting back how many spells of what level they've used recently, unless it seems like it's getting out of hand, unless I'm back there and I'm like, wait, how many level 6 spells did you have prepared at level 14, Unless that sort of situation happens, it's on them. So however they prefer to do that bookkeeping is fine with me. The reason I like to get these two, and I put these two together and get them out of the way, is one, it's just a lot of exposition, this sort of stuff. Specifically, obviously, number one, the world setup, right? I know some DMs like to have that be the beginning of the first actual play session because it gets, you're you're giving all these great descriptors. You wrote down this, Tolkien description of your universe, and you're thinking it's going to get them in the mood. And sometimes it does, and that's not to knock that. I think of it more as that's not actually playing right. And I want to get the not playing stuff out of the way in a session 0. The other thing is these two have a lot of impact on what kind of character a player at your table may play. Whether it's because the rules have changed that, maybe you've switched up how warlocks work a little bit in 5e, and all of a sudden, because of a rule change, they don't really want to play a warlock. I think that's fine. I also think you should give your player an opportunity to maybe argue for what they want to do in their character concept and why that should work. But still, you're the DM, it's your world. And this is why you do it ahead of time, so no one puts a bunch of time into a character that you then say isn't a legal character for this game. Next, I like to kind of turn the attention towards the table. And I like to ask them what kind of game they're looking for. Now, I know you already have a concept and you've already set up the world. What I mean is, are they looking for more hack and slash dungeon crawl? Are they looking for something more roleplay heavy? Example, I think, is if you're playing a spy RPG, for instance. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I know they're around, but are you going to be recreating James Bond, or are you going to be recreating Argo, right? Or is it going to be this dark, very realistic, you're bluffing, you have to come up with reasons to be in certain places to gather information. You have to try and sneak off away from people to make contact with whoever your handler is to pass along information. There's a threat of torture and that sort of thing. Obviously, this can get pretty dark, just like the movie Argo, and some players don't want that. Some players want more of kind of your James Bond sort of, you're still a spy, but there's going to be a lot of fights, whether it's, hand to hand or gun fights. There's going to be high-speed chases in cars along the cliffs of Monaco. There's going to be charming people, bluffing people, and, trying to get information out of beautiful women and so forth. Very tongue-in-cheek, even though technically they're both spy games. The reason I like to get this out is not that I want to change too much of what I want to do with the campaign, as part of this is all about finding the right group. And so if, the campaign world that you've set up and the idea that you've given is too far from what the players want, they'll have a chance to back out. And similarly, you can ask them, what are you looking for? And to be honest, I'm not looking to play that or to run that kind of game. That's a little too different from the concept that I had, and that's fine to say. And the other thing you can do is you can do little rewrites, to what you have. But most importantly, the reason I ask this is, as we all know, one of the biggest things about being a dungeon master or game master is improvisation. And knowing the direction and the kind of central focus of what they want this game to be can help a lot with your improvisation. And so you know what direction to take it. At least for me, I always have a tendency to make my improvisation silly. And if I know they want a more serious game, I can try and, rein that in. Then I like to ask players what kind of table they're looking for. I separate this from the game because I think of it as the game is in what are your characters doing. The table is in what are you doing at the table. What kind of interaction are you having with the other players? And there's another two examples here are organized play and the kind of the poker game mentality, right? So organized play, people are getting together to play the game. That's the focus of the get together. Yeah, there's going to be, some jokes, and you're going to, meet people and chat with people, but it's not like, to, kind of quote Brian Posehn, the nerd poker game, right? The idea of the poker game amongst friends is just, it's an excuse to get together. The game is the vehicle, the reason, the excuse to get together and hang out. It doesn't mean you're not playing the game. It just means there are going to be some sessions where you have almost as much joking or, hey, that reminds me of this time we blah, 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 blah in college, as there is playing. Some people want that. Some people don't mind that. Some people, that's not what they're looking for at all. And this is another opportunity for you and all of your players to get on the same page about what this experience is going to be about. Lastly, I do like to do a little bit of character creation. Now, especially if you have experienced players, maybe you don't need to do this during the session 0. You don't maybe need to have everyone do up all their rolling and picking of feats and everything right there. You can maybe give them some simple instructions and send them home with their homework, so to speak, of putting this character together. You tell them point by, standard array. Maybe it's roll, and you make everyone roll in front of you, and they can do the rest later. But one thing I do like to do is have people talk about their character concepts a little bit. So one of the great things about a session 0, especially if you're doing from meetup.com, Craigslist, what have you, Roll20, even, online, you don't necessarily know these people super well. This helps break the ice. In my experience, when you have people that don't know each other very well playing a role-playing game together for the first time, it can lead to a lot of silence in those first few sessions because people don't want to be the one to always act first or come up with all of the ideas for the group. I feel like gamers sometimes, at least, or often, are very sensitive to being overbearing or quarterbacking a game, as we call it, and taking things over and just kind of telling everyone what they're going to do because it's your plan or what have you. So by having people get together a little bit and talk out of character, people get to feel for each other a little bit, which helps with this breaking of the ice. Second, by having people introduce their character concept a little bit at the table before you go, even if they haven't finished putting the character sheet together, it can give everyone else at the table a good idea, even an even better idea of what's going to happen with this person and this PC in the game, right? If you have someone who is looking for a nerd poker game, and they are trying to find, a place where they can just kind of, make jokes and have fun and make friends as much, and they're playing kind of a silly concept for a character, then, it's probably going to be pretty silly at the table. And again, that might be great. That might be the antithesis of what you're looking for. But what it helps is then, let's say you have a dwarf cleric that, is a little hot-headed, and he got kicked out. This was someone's character, and he got kicked out of his the temple or center of worship because he got in too many fights, even when he was the security guard, right? And this is your concept for the character. And if everyone at the table hears that before going into session 0, then that player is going to feel much more comfortable in session 1 running through a doorway hammer first, because it's going to come off, it's going to read as role-playing that character. If they didn't get a chance to do that, to let everyone know that that's the kind of character and it's like the first encounter, they might feel like, I'm just gonna sit here quietly at first. It might not be what my character does, but it's what I'm gonna do to see what everyone else wants to do before I do something that's gonna act for the whole party. And as games go on, I think you'll see behavior like this more and more, and that's why these campaigns that get good chemistry, player chemistry, and character chemistry are so great, is because when this stuff starts to happen, that's when, let's be honest, you're really role-playing, right? You are getting into character. This isn't what I would do, but this is what my character is going to do, and it's going to be hilarious, or it's going to be fun, so I'm going to do it. And in my opinion, that's a lot of what role-playing is about. And so getting someone to that place where they can be comfortable to be themselves and to be the character is one of the biggest reasons for doing this. Getting exposition and some of that non-play stuff out of the way is another reason. There's always the classic, people might not know how to put characters together. It might be their first game, blah, blah, blah. This situation helps them get help putting that first level character together, and so forth. And lastly, not only do you get a chance to see if this is the group you want to take through this adventure that you've been writing and, putting your heart and soul into, but they get a chance to see if this is the table for them. In one of my session zeros, I have had a player say, you know what, this isn't what I'm looking for, to be honest. Like, you all seem like cool people, but this just isn't the game I'm looking for right now. Thanks, but no thanks. And that was totally fine. There were no hard feelings on my part. It wasn't like, oh, you didn't like this thing I wrote? Not at all like that. And actually, one of the people that stayed in the game got in touch with her and said, hey, I have some friends playing a game that sounds more in line with what you're looking for. And that person that stayed in the game was able to get her into a game that fit what she was looking for, in part because she went to that session zero. Which I guess kind of little epilogue point here. Game networking, it's a thing. And so sometimes reaching out and going to these session zeros, even if you're not sure, or just, going to an Adventures League game just to meet some other DMs and people that are local interested in the hobby, can be totally worth it. It can be hard to grow your tabletop group, and I think the session zero concept helps get a table that's going to run well for a long time and help get people into the kind of games they want and helps get DMs playing the kind of games they want. And I think this getting games to run smoothly like this more consistently with a session zero is going to help not just grow the hobby, but grow your group of potential gaming friends. All right, thanks for joining me today. As always, I've been Antonio, and I look forward to seeing you next time back in the DM's Dungeon.